Hey, this is Adewale Ademiwa from StressTherapist.net. What a lot of us don't realize is that there is often so many unconscious influences shaping our lives, shaping our reactions to things, shaping our decisions, carrying a backpack filled with all the heavy words, all the harsh words spoken to us by people in our lives, all the hurtful behavior, all the backbiting, or the letdowns. You've been hit badly by experiences that sort of really shattered your reality of how secure you are in life. Then chances are that you are using a lot of those past experiences to decide on a lot of things. It's coloring a lot of your relationships, it's coloring a lot of your friendships, it's coloring your job opportunities and so many things in life. And so it can be so hard to see past through all of that in a way that makes you engage through choices that truly reflect who you want to be in right now. Being able to value and trust yourself and embrace life and opportunities without the fear that causes you to hold back all the time. We feel stuck in a current, just like we're in a current where we are trying to swim to the things we want. We're trying to swim to the life we see for ourselves. And this current just keeps pushing us back to shore, back to the experiences of failing, which means there's so many opportunities for improving our lives. So many opportunities for growth and professional development that just passes by. And so in this video, I'd like to share some insights with you, myself and a friend of mine, Althea. We're going to be talking together, helping to share some insights that could help you break free from the chains of past pains. We'd like to share some very practical strategies that can help you move away from the repeat cycles of failure to being able to experience a life where you are consciously in charge of things working better. So if you're looking to move beyond just surviving life and looking to actually start thriving, I believe you'll find some useful things you can take away from this video. So this story is about Camara,
Hmm.
Camira, and the idea here is that Camira has had experience of trauma in a 5-year long relationship where she was with a toxic marriage. But what had happened was then that she broke up from that relationship and eventually got in another relationship with Felix, who was a nice and kind and friendly person. Um, but unfortunately, the baggage that has sort of come with Camira into this new relationship from the old relationship was having a very big influence on this new relationship. Even the kind acts from Felix was being treated with suspicion. And I know sometimes people might think, oh, why should that happen? Why is it that someone is being kind and you are being suspicious? If you've been in a traumatic relationship, there's something called love bombing, where they shower a lot of love on you. And right after, they do something quite toxic. So I know you've had that experience lots of time when somebody loves you, then hurts you, loves you, then hurts you, loves you, then hurts you. You go into a new relationship and somebody's being kind. Naturally, you sort of be expecting the
Mm,
what's going to happen next. What does
yeah.
he really want? Yeah. So sadly, that kind of creates intuition that's looking for a problem that's not really there. And I guess one of the things I was hoping was that whilst we're talking about her from a perspective of trauma, that the concepts here
Mm,
don't necessarily have to be very linked to trauma exactly. Um, but the idea here being that our past experiences can really bias us in a way that we don't see clearly anymore in so many
yeah.
things.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the part that triggered me, if I'm
Oh,
honest.
right. Okay.
Because I actually thought that I do use past experiences and instinctive reactions, I say, or behaviors, whatever you would call it,
Mm,
thoughts to make decisions.
yeah.
And I do that a lot. Um, I think that is always my first my default reaction,
Yeah,
if I'm
yeah,
honest.
yeah,
But particularly if it's something that, I suppose it does have to be something that would trigger me as well for me to have that instant reaction like that. Anything else, I'm probably going to think about it. But I think maybe it's like a real unconscious thing
yeah,
when I do, or subconscious things that when I do it. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely past experience and instinctive, and I think that's with lots of things. That's not just with relationships. That's just with things that where I'm put into a situation and I'm tested. It
hmm
could be tested against my knowledge, my expertise, could be anything
yeah,
really. But
yeah.
that's kind of like that is kind of like the default. So
That
when I
that's the
read that, I
default.
was like, oh, that's
Right.
interesting. What's
Yeah,
wrong with that?
I think one of the interesting things about this is
Mm,
we all sort of rely on our instinctive thinking processes
mm,
and almost like a knee jerk reaction thing.
mm,
Um, and sometimes I think that the problem becomes when we don't realize that actually that could be biased, where when we believe that that instinct is always 100% correct and true,
yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
we don't realize that some of the decisions we are making or the directions we are taking is being driven by those instincts that could actually be very, very wrong.
Mm, yeah, that's true. So I suppose then, so if it's like a natural for most people, it's not really an issue, but then it becomes an issue when you're allowing it to drive everything and you're not being open to other suggestions or other viewpoints, and and hearing seeing somebody else's point of view, which could be to rationale the situation really. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so we're just kind of looking at this from the perspective of how our brain naturally works. Because how does the brain work? In terms of there's a part of us that um we call it the system one thinking, and this part of what I call we call the system two thinking. And the system one thinking is like the automatic automation type thinking, where if I was to throw a ball at you now out here, you just catch it.
So throw it right back at you.
Throw it back at me. Yeah. You just catch it without necessarily
Mm,
thinking.
yeah.
And what's happened there is that you've gone through a number of thoughts processes actually very fast. Oh, a
Mm,
ball is coming at me. I got to put my hand up and catch it. But because it's in the subconscious and has happened on an automated fashion, we are not really aware that we are thinking that. Yeah.
mm,
And so for Camira, the life she's led with her ex had trained her in so many automated ways that the thinking processes she has, the automated thinking process she has, um, starts to sabotage a lot of decisions without her realizing it. Because
mm,
on one hand, you're thinking you're making a good decision, only to realize that actually that decision you're making is wrong. I don't know if you've ever had friends who they tell you, um, I really know what that person is thinking about me because of the way she's
mm.
thinking. But we can't really read minds, can we?
I think I'm pretty good at that, not really. I like to think so. Yeah, no, no, it's very true. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a difficult one really because again, being stuck in that spiral of you know you want. I can imagine like Kamara is like desperately wanting to feel loved, feel like she's in this secure relationship, but the fear of if I do get too comfortable, do I if I do get too settled, is it just going to be a repeat of what happened the last time when I felt secure, when I
hmm
felt settled, when I
hmm
felt loved, when I
hmm
was in love, and
Exactly.
then look what happened.
Yeah.
So I can imagine this spiral of thoughts going round and round constantly with her wanting the relationship as she sees it on the surface, but deep down thinking, no, this is too good to be true.
Yeah. 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 And it's sad because even though she may have experienced his kindness for a year or two, that system is still there because it's not been challenged, it's not been addressed.
Mm,
And so, whilst a part of her will be saying, but you have all this evidence of him being kind without hurting you, there's a part of her
mm,
that's still saying, but what if this next time is the time
mm,
it
mm.
happens? Um,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
right. So the reason we're kind of looking at this, we're kind of looking at how sometimes life experiences can set us up to fail.
Mm,
And it could be failing at work, failing in relationships, failing in your friendships, failing in exams. But we don't kind of realize that the experiences we've had is actually creating this drive towards seeing things in such a biased way that affects our choices and our decisions.
mm,
Um, we often thinking that we are conscious, fully conscious of the actions and decisions we are taking, but not realizing how much of it is being influenced by these
mm.
biases.
And those biases are our past experiences.
So the biases are past experiences, but perhaps more the automatic, instinctive thinking
Mm.
and decision processes we make.
So is it, would you say it's the two of those together then?
Yeah, yeah.
Or okay. Hmm.
So there's the instinctive process, which is the thinking
Hmm.
one system, and the thinking two system is more like problem solving, analytical.
Hmm.
It's a part of you that would look at some failures from the past and mull over it for a while, or think about something that's going to happen in the future, and predict all these things into it. But then there's that instinctive one where we just react, we just react.
Mm.
I just give a few examples of situations where of types of experiences that this can work out on. So, let's say you have your parents always criticizing you. Then the outcome then is that you start to doubt yourself without necessarily realizing that that's why. Um, you're always needing other people to say that you are doing good and not
Mm.
necessarily trusting your own
Yeah. So
decisions.
constantly seeking that external validation.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you see that a lot in the workplaces actually as well, where people are always doubting their own ability, and they're constantly seeking approval from their colleagues, constantly seeking approval from their line managers as well.
Yeah.
And then they feel they're so uncomfortable in or insecure in
Mm.
their own ability that they start to compare themselves with colleagues who haven't even got the same responsibility as
Exactly.
them or same roles as them. And
Exactly.
then they'll hear that colleague getting praised for something. They'll
Yeah.
forget they got praised the day before for something that they were quite rightly
Exactly.
deserve, but they
Exactly.
hear that and they say, oh, why are they getting why are they getting praised again? Why is
Exactly.
nobody recognizing me? And so they
Exactly.
forget, again, it's like straight away thinking, oh my goodness, that person's better than me. Wonder if everyone's thinking they're so amazing. Why can't I be as good as them?
Yeah.
As well
Yeah.
as thinking themselves,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
start um, invalidating their own abilities.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that, like you said, if someone was to praise them, what happens is it seems to kind of fall on a deaf ear.
Mm, mm.
Um,
It feels good. It feels good at that time, and I suppose it's almost similar to when you mentioned about Camara, and she's getting the affection that she wants, and she's happy and comfortable in that.
mhm.
And then when she starts to think of those thoughts of, oh, actually, what does this actually mean? She's actually thought, as you said, it could be in 2 years of perfection, but she's not thinking about those 2 years. She's just thinking about that moment where she's thinking, what next is what's
What's
about to
going to
come.
happen next?
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
about to happen next. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's one example. Just trying to see if I can find more examples that are not necessarily linked with trauma. Um, so if you have overprotective parents, for example,
Mm.
That can also create these kind of patterns because you become scared to take risks. And so your instinct would be to not take that risk because
Mm.
what your parents have done to protect you and to ward off all these dangers, you are not prepared for, and that kind
Mm.
of creates that kind of experience. Um,
I actually knew somebody who was really badly affected by that. Actually, they had two children, and um, I wouldn't say they were necessarily overprotective, but clearly they were overprotective in a sense. But what happened was the older child
mhm,
was equally overprotective over their younger sibling to the point where honestly the sibling couldn't look left without saying, "Don't look left too much." You know, it was really bad. It was just like, why are they behaving like that? And they said, "Oh, I think it's because as a mum, they were so protective over both of them
mhm,
that the older one has now taken up the role of overprotecting the younger one." And honestly, it was like that for at least the first 8 years of their life. The younger one was um, very boisterous. I like to climb everywhere, so it was causing anxiety to the older one,
right,
who
right.
was so protective. And yeah, they couldn't do anything. And every minute I'd say, "All right, calm down, stop doing that." But that didn't help by telling me to calm down and to relax
Mhm,
and don't protect my sibling. For
mhm,
that child, it was like, "But that's what you were doing, and now you're telling me to stop it." It just didn't make sense, and it seemed to make them more anxious as well.
mhm, mhm.
Now, how many years later, they're like a completely different child, and they're taking more risks now. But again, they had to recognize, and as a child, it's difficult. But the parents almost had to release, stop being so overprotective, and show, look, nothing happens.
Mhm,
It's going to
mhm,
be okay. To
mhm.
be able to almost like reverse that anxiety, to just kind of like show the balance and say, yes, there's danger, and
Yeah,
you need to be cautious, but you're not to be overprotective where you do nothing, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So
exactly, exactly, exactly. So,
mm,
so there was another example, just as you were telling me about that one, that just kind of came into my head about. So her situation was that she had a brother who was quite unruly
mm,
and was like the black sheep of the family, and he would get in trouble all the time, and she was the younger one, and so she noticed the way he stressed the family so badly, and
mm,
noticed the way they had to keep telling him off all the time and all the troubles he was bringing home,
mm,
and that made her decide to be kinder and nicer, but she took it
mm,
to the nth degree and became she started struggling with perfectionism as a result. Um,
mm,
and so you won't even realize that those kind of situations is creating an imprint, is creating an impression that's making you have a particular perspective in life. And so
mm,
how perfectionism starts to cause a lot of anxiety
mm,
because obviously when you try to do everything perfect, it's impossible. So, and naturally, then that created like an imposter syndrome thing where she's trying to do something perfect, she's failing at it, feeling like she's a failure, feeling like she's not good enough, and just creates a cycle that just
mm.
goes around with her like that.
Because you're trying the impossible. And what about people who go around always pleasing other people? They sacrifice their own needs for the sake of somebody else's.
Yeah,
So this is something that I've come across quite a lot, working with um, different people, even like the whether it's people in teams in the workplace, or whether it's working with young people, even like in group work. I noticed they rather take the opinions of somebody else. Oh, no, 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 it's all right. You will go with your idea. Your idea was good. No, no, it's okay. Well, you know, rather than stand up and say, yes, my idea was great, or I will do this, they'd rather go with somebody else. And that person doesn't necessarily have to have a stronger character, because
hmm,
sometimes it's the bolder characters that make people kind of like dim their own light. But this is just a habit of always wanting to please other people and not be seen as the one who's more assertive or come across as too aggressive even. They're
Exactly.
just like, actually, I'd rather just be, a little bit passive and just let you get on with it.
Exactly. And sometimes perhaps that is happening because the system one is thinking people don't really like me for me. They only
Mm,
like me for the things I do for them or the things I allow
mm,
them to have. So, and because that's the core thinking that they don't even realize is going on, um,
mm,
whenever they let people have their way, it proves to them that, oh, that's why people are staying around. It keeps
mm,
proving, so they never really challenge that,
mm.
and it just kind of keeps that core stuck. But the sad part of it then is it creates this impact of you lose who you are. You don't get your sense of self properly, and
I ain't got a clue who they are.
exactly, life feels really bland because you
Mm,
don't know what you want out of life,
mm,
um, and that kind of creates that kind of problem. So, so really, just to kind of wrap up. Next video, we're going to be looking at the strategies that we could use for dealing with this. I mean, for those of you who are watching this now, if you're thinking of getting more insight into this thing that we're talking about, and there's an article that's on my website, stresstherapist.net, and if you look in the link below in the YouTube, if you're watching from YouTube, it will be linked below. If you're watching on Facebook, it'll also be in the description. Um, so the link will take you to an article that will talk about this in detail. And but above the article, you have a questionnaire that will help you start to determine different ways of thinking and being that could be sabotaging you as a result of things you've been through in the past as well. But kind of to summarize this, so really what we're saying here is you can think of this like crafting a hot pepper sauce. And that's
mm,
the analogy I came up with. And the idea was that the the hot peppers is your thinking one system, which is fiery, quick, instinctive. There's just kind of initial rapid action. And then combine that with vinegar to sort of flatten the hotness of the pepper a little
neutralize
bit,
it.
to
Mm,
neutralize it a little bit. And that's the um, your analytical, logical thinking processes that will come through into place. So usually, when these two are working very well together, um, it tends to help to balance the thinking. But unfortunately, again, those two could be influenced by these biases that we've been talking about heavily.
mm,
And when they are influenced by these biases, we tend to make choices and decisions that sabotage us and cause us
mm,
to fail in things in life. Without even realizing that's why. We find ourselves going through cycles where we experience a failure in something and wonder, why do we keep coming there? Not realizing that these systems are in place. Um, and so the goal of this video is to kind of help people see in plain sight these cycles,
mm.
um, and then give you tools to be able to work through them and break out of them. Yes. Don't know if you have something to kind of say to that out here before we wrap
Um,
up.
not really.
Not really. That's good.
I was, I was just no, I literally just was just listening to that and just thought how just on point that was just in terms of like the fiery way of thinking. Just again, just as you're saying about thinking about the past experience and that instinct of just coming out with that response and relying solely on that as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
And interesting as well because really when you think about when you're talking about hot pepper sauce, that the pepper is like the main ingredient, so it's almost like that is like the dominant trait before you start thinking about the vinegar. So when you think about that in terms of people's thinking, you understand how sometimes that is the one that always comes up first before you bring in
Exactly.
that second thinking to be able to neutralize and balance your actual thoughts. So that's kind of like how I was really kind of like digesting, excuse the pun, but really, really digesting what you were saying about those ways of thinking. And I
Yeah.
think it's really, and when you, and again, even just going a little bit further, when you think about things like hot pepper sauce and how it actually lingers for a while, even after you've had it for a while, it just lingers. And you can, and it's when you come and react to, you have that instinctive reaction, that fiery reaction,
Hmm.
it sits with you for a long time. it,
Yes,
it doesn't it doesn't go away straight away. You
exactly.
don't
Mm.
have it and then you forget about it and you go off and
Exactly.
think about it. It just sits on you and just
Mm.
plays with your conscience, or just your whole thinking process, and
Exactly.
it's just really quite uncomfortable for a long time.
Exactly. Exactly. Cool. Cool. All
Mm.
right. All right. So thank you so much for that out here. So just for you guys to know who I am, so my name is Adewale, and I'm the author of StressTherapist.net. And the idea here is, I've spent the last 27 years just learning about the mental health, mental well-being, helping people grow, develop, and be who they want to be. But I also learned quite a lot of ways in which life tends to, or experiences, or even society tends to brainwash us and try to make us be this thing that everybody seems to think that we should be. Um, so the goal of what I wanted myself and Arthur to do with this podcast is to kind of help people to start to see clearly very practical ways of breaking out of patterns, or systems or experiences that could sort of hold you down in negative emotions, in toxic emotions, and help you break free so that you can live the kind of life you want. I just gonna let you tell Arthur tell you a little bit about herself as well.
Okay, so my name's Althea Blake, and there's a number of things that I do as well. And really, I got into this side of things really through Adewale, by just working with him a few years ago, just really delivering workshops, just really helping people coping through difficult times. And for me, that really was one of the things that propelled me onto other areas of my career. So I've always worked with young people, helping them to start up their own businesses, but really using entrepreneurship as a way to build self esteem and confidence as well. And when you're thinking about young people in terms of like the different traumas that they're going through, so trying to make some of the decisions that they're making for their future
Hmm.
careers is really trying to just help them navigate so many areas of their lives, really. And I always say that, when you're helping a young person, it will make my life a lot easier, because when I go into the the corporate world, which is another area that I do, where I'm working with the adults um, and helping them with their well-being, I realized that actually, if we had a lot of support when we were younger to deal with
Hmm.
some of the
Hmm.
many, just not always traumas, but just some of the situations in life that we try to navigate, when we get into the workplace, it would be a lot easier. So it's all about really like the well-being of the individuals, and just bringing these things together to help them to be a better version of themselves. And
Cool.
that version is based on themselves and not what other person
What
has
people are
placed
saying.
on them as a label.
Cool. Cool. So we're going to have links to Althea's contacts also in the description. So if you'd like to reach out to her as well, please feel free to do so.